Each day, men and women have a variety of responsibilities to maintain. Establishing yourself professionally and attaining a personal life of fulfillment are usually at odds in our society. These clashes can lead to an unfulfilled existence. Have you had enough of this constant discontentment? It's time to change your perspective at Live Life Wealthier. Listen in on conversations that reveal the keys to living a full life. Learn how to achieve true wealth in the 4 realms of L.I.F.E: love, inspiration, family, and enterprise. This is your guide to breaking free from a rut and maintaining a healthy balance between your personal and professional lives. Marta Skeek-Herrick is your host.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Live Life Wealthier. Today, we have an extraordinary guest with us. His name doesn't need to be said. He is an icon. He is a legend. This is the co-founder of E! Entertainment Television, and his name is Larry Namer. I am so excited, but also so very humbled that you're here making time out of your very busy day to join us. Thank you. Thank you, Larry.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Awesome. Well, Larry, as you may already know, Live Life Wealthier is a combination of love, inspiration, family, and enterprise, right? It's an acronym for life. We try to focus on providing people more than just the typical, we have money, we have stardom, we have fame, we have success, and we have success at all levels outside of money as well, right? And typically, in my background, being a CPA, what we found is that people focus on the financial success for a long time, and sometimes they forget that there's other parts of life. However, financial success is extraordinarily important as well because it helps us create the life of our dreams. So these are the topics that we typically explore on this show. Yeah?
Okay, I got it.
Awesome. So you are an incredible icon, and I would love for people to get to know who Larry is. Like, who is Larry? And I'm sure a lot of people have already heard your story, where you came from and how you created everything that you've done so far. But I would love to hear it from you. And if you can share it with our audience, who is Larry? Where are you from? And how did this all start for you?
Sure. I grew up in a poor area in Brooklyn before Brooklyn was trendy Brooklyn. But actually, the area I came from, Coney Island, is still considered the hood. It hasn't been gentrified yet. And, we were basically, my family, my dad, Turkish immigrant and stuff like that. And we didn't realize we were poor because all of us in the neighborhood lived the same way. And we thought that's the way things are supposed to be. And, my parents' aspirations for me were that I would get a civil service job or become a CPA and, be able to retire at 65 with a pension. And, they were all about security. And for whatever reason, I didn't really follow that path. And I the first kid not in the family to go to college. And, I went to Brooklyn College and graduated there with a degree in economics. And the plan was I would become a teacher and either economics or history. But City of New York put a freeze on a moratorium on hiring teachers. So that was not going to happen. So I took a job that I thought was going to be a temporary job for this new thing called cable TV. And all my friends laughed at me going, come on, nobody will ever pay for a television. And for whatever reason, I just said, well, I'll do it until I figure out what I do with my economics degree. So I did that. I got a job at a company called Manhattan Cable. They hired me to be an assistant underground splicer, which meant I would go under the streets of New York every day and put the wires together. And they paid me $90 a week. And I had a become a member of the electrician union, IBEW, which I did. I kind of rose through the ranks there because it was a nascent industry, and most of the people doing all this work under the streets of Manhattan, through the backyards of the big buildings, barely you could find someone with a high school diploma. So, I was an oddball with with a college degree in economics. And they would always wonder going, hey, how did you learn how to use this equipment in just a week when it takes everybody else a year? And I go, yeah, it's simple. I read the instructions. So I kind of worked my way up the ranks. So I worked out of the sewers, and then I became a construction guy, and then I became an installer, and then a serviceman. And the company then got bought by Time Incorporated, which at that time, Time was a publishing company. Did Time Magazine, Life Magazine, all that stuff, people. And so you had all the Harvard and Yale's with their MBAs, trying to figure out what it is that they just bought, and who are those guys that go under the streets every day. So somebody in HR said, hey, wait a second, there's a guy that knows how to read a balance sheet, that does that. So I kind of became a translator between those two worlds. And then, the timing folks asked me to go into management, which I eventually did. And I rose up the ranks. I ended up, I think I was 25 or 26. I was actually the director of operations at Manhattan Cable. I had 300 plus people reporting to me, most of which were older, which was an interesting management challenge, to get people to respect you when they're older than you and think you're supposed to respect them more. And then when cable really began to take off and people realized it's more than just good reception and a few channels, the company decided to really expand and acquire other companies. And they said, hey, you know how to do this stuff. Why don't you go around and help us identify good targets? So I got into the whole acquisitions thing. And we quickly started buying up stuff and became the biggest cable company in the US. Along the way, one of us decided that these new things called satellites would be cool to put movies up on and stuff. So we started HBO, and I mean, Jerry Levin started it. I was like a little soldier. And but then big cities started realizing they wanted cable, and but they all didn't want to put it on telephone poles, which is the way most cable systems were built, except Manhattan, because Manhattan had no telephone poles. So some big company out of Canada won the franchise for the bigger part of Los Angeles. And the caveat was it had to go underground. Well, I was the only person around who knew how to build underground. So I got recruited to go to L.A. and build the first 61 channel two-way cable system. And yeah, it was weird. I was 30 years old, I think. And, they basically handed me a franchise agreement from the city of L.A. saying, here's what you got to build. And they gave me a credit line with Toronto Dominion for $400 million and said, and here's where you get the money from. And they left, and I'm like, okay, But, you're a New York kid and you're out in L.A. and everybody's going to parties and premieres and all this stuff. So I said, hey, that looks cool. I want to do that. And when I called the studios, they were like, well, you're really more like the telephone company or the gas company. You're not really in the entertainment business. And finally, I just said, hey, the most valuable marketing thing that you have are those movie trailers that you make, and I said, but the only time I ever see them is when I'm in the movies. I said, don't you think that you want me to see those while I'm in my house to make me want to go to the movies? And they went, yeah, well, we can't afford it. And I said, tell you what, I'll put them on TV, because I had 61 channels and there weren't 61 channels. I said, I'll put them on TV, but you got to invite me to all those parties and stuff. And they said, yeah, okay. So they would send me these movie trailers. So I would get the best 2 minutes of a $50 million movie. And I hired a kid, I think, for $3 an hour to kind of edit them together into a loop. And we would, when we do surveys, you go, what's your favorite channel? People go, well, I love CNN. I love ESPN. I love that trailer channel. And I'm going, wait a second. I get the best 2 minutes of $50 million movie for free, and people love it. I kind of filed that in the back of my head. And then, the company that I work for sold out and they went back to Canada. And they said, come to Canada. And I went, no, I didn't go from New York to LA to go to Toronto. That ain't going to happen. So my friend Alan Marufka and I just were kicking around ideas. And I said, and he said, I was always thinking of somebody should do MTV of the movies. And I said, wait a second. I said, if MTV could stand a host in front of a green screen and go, and Madonna has a new video, we could, stand a host in front of a green screen and say, and Schwarzenegger has a new movie. We get the same assets for free. So we just decided we would, start our own TV network. We weren't smart enough to know you can't do that. Because, most, or even to this day, I think he is the only one ever started by people, like regular people, as opposed to media companies. And, it was unheard of. And at that time, the going rate to start a TV network was somewhere between $60 and $100 million. And we thought our idea was brilliant. We wrote the plan and, we went around pitching it. People go, it's a good idea, but you're not Rupert Murdoch. You're not Ted Turner. No, we're not giving you any money. Finally, we met a guy on Wall Street who had just, a company was really a bond house, took over, started investment banking division. We got introduced to him. We went to this guy's office. He had movie posters all over the wall. And we're going, Al and I looked at each other and said, this is weird. And the guy was like, I used to be the entertainment reporter for my college newspaper. I love the entertainment business. I love what you're doing. I'm going to do it. And we said, great. Could you give us more like the 100 million than the 60? And he goes, oh, no. He goes, I'm only allowed to sign for 2.5. I go, well, what are we supposed to do with 2.5? The minimum is like 60 to get started. And he goes, well, that's all I could sign for. So Al and I said, you know what? We'll figure this out. We took the 2.5. I had a friend that was teaching radio, television, film in University of Texas in Austin. And I called him up, said, do you have kids that need intern jobs this summer? And he went, yeah, I got a lot of kids we couldn't place. I said, send me them all. And so literally he started with 11 employees and 31 interns.
Oh my God. What year was this?
We actually went on the air in 87. The initial name was called Movie Time because we were focusing on movies. But then when we decided to expand and be, where we went from MTV of the movies to where America watches Hollywood, we realized we needed a bigger name. So the name was changed to E with the big apostrophe and stuff like that. And, the rest was, we very quickly became the fastest growing TV network in the world. First year, we're in 14 other countries besides the U.S. And, so we were an overnight success that took 3.5 years to get there.
Oh my gosh. And that I love that you pointed that out, because a lot of times when individuals or business owners, entrepreneurs see that success, they just think it happened like that.
Everybody said good idea, but you're not. It was unthinkable then that, two guys from the East Coast were going to be able to start a TV network that would become anything. And, and now he is in 142 countries and arguably the largest influencer of pop culture in the world.
It most certainly is. And it's interesting because I remember when I'm an immigrant also. So when I was in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, I used to watch Talk Soup and E, and it helped me learn Americanisms. It helped me be more American because I was so non-Americanized at that point in time. And it was a really instrumental show and network in my life that has impacted, in the way I interact with individuals. And it was interesting because my mom at that time as well didn't speak English very well, but she joined me watching it because it's so, it's not intimidating, the network, right? When you watch, it's like, oh, cool. I want to see what the actors are doing or what's going on in Hollywood. And it's a big curiosity. And it kind of scratched that itch for a while. But it was also really interesting that a lot of the language that my mom learned was from your network.
Yeah, no, it was interesting because, sometimes when you don't have a lot of money, you got to be really resourceful on how you spend it. And, Talk Soup was a great example of that, because again, we didn't have real money. And, early was like kind of a function of my sensibility, which is Hollywood is funny stuff. Don't try to make believe it's rocket science. And, our idea was we're going to program the people who just want to like lump out on the couch and let this stuff pass over and go to the kitchen and make dinner and come back, kind of go in and out. You didn't have to make a big commitment to watch it. You didn't have to say, now I have an hour, I'm going to watch. Everything was really quick. And, with Talk Soup, it was kind of interesting because we came up with this idea, and when we told the crew, we said, we want to do a TV show that makes fun of TV shows. And they were like, what? I go, yeah, I want to do a TV show that makes fun of TV shows. And they went, you're out of your mind. It's crazy. But, Talk Soup launched the career of Greg Kinnear and lots of other folks went on. I think there are 16 or 17 former hosts of Talk Soup that have gone on to bigger careers. And, what started out as, something that we had to do because we really didn't have money to do fancy production. That show ran 26 years. So, yeah.
It's amazing. And I don't know if Talk Soup is still on, but E is.
The E is still on, of course. And it changed, the Talk Soup changed its name to The Soup. Why, I'm not sure, but,
Interesting. And and you've touched on this very briefly. If you were to do something like this now, it would almost be impossible for an individual to do it because a media company, it would typically be the one that would be able to upfront such monies. However, if you knew all the hardships that you had to go through in creating this and all the obstacles, would you have done it in the first place? Or was it kind of the naivete of the unknown, uncharted waters that kind of allowed you to pull through?
Well, a little combination of both. I mean, Alan and I both had a very clear vision of what it was supposed to be and stuff like that. Again, started MTV in the movies and then became Entertainment Tonight 24 hours a day. We were really clear. And while everybody else was taking Hollywood, and I use Hollywood with quotes around it so seriously, we were like, this is funny stuff. Don't try and, make it more than it is. So it really had that sensibility. And that's what really got audiences intrigued by it because it wasn't regular television. We didn't have fancy equipment. We didn't, have big stars and stuff like that. People kind of felt like they were watching something, so almost like they weren't supposed to. They were, the first Academy Awards that we ever covered, we were actually denied press credentials because they went, no, you're some cable company, go away. And, we ended up climbing over the fence and we snuck into the Academy Awards and we were on the red carpet and interviewing people and they caught us and threw us out.
Did you literally climb the fence?
Yeah, we literally did. I carried the equipment. I wasn't the shooter. But, we did that. But, it was very irreverent and it was kind of Stardust stuff. People go, so Tom Cruise, tell us about your next movie. Our thing was like, hey, that's a cool suit you're wearing. Where did you get that? Yeah. So we started really dealing with that. We looked at this as pop culture, not necessarily as some serious film business and stuff like that. So, the music was important. The fashion was important. Everything was as important as like, what's your next project?
Yeah, that's really interesting. It is more about pop culture. And do you see remnants of what you have created with Alan? Do you see remnants of that being passed around in other media outlets, other channels, other streamers? Like, is this now the standard?
Yeah, I think it's become, well, minus the sense of humor, it's become the standard. The whole idea of short form, we were doing short form, way back then. And that's why people could come in and out real quickly. And I've seen 20 different offshoots of Talk Soup out there, and, everybody's doing it. In today's world, with today's technology, we wouldn't do the network the way we did it then. I mean, it was a linear TV network and stuff. And, today I wouldn't start a linear TV network, but I think the subject matter is still important. So, now with the internet and streaming, you see all things that I find derivative from what we did at E. I mean, I get told by people like we were the pioneers of reality and stuff. And yeah, and in a way we were because we had no choice. We couldn't do big dramas and stuff like that. And, So we did Wild on E and E Hollywood True Story and Howard Stern and, all of those things. And, so people say, oh, you guys started reality. I'm going, I guess, yeah, we probably did. I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, we did in many ways.
Interesting. And Howard Stern is a perfect example of being irreverent, but that is also another show that I used to watch religiously.
Yeah. And with Howard, people, again, people didn't realize, because when Alan and I said, we want to put cameras in this guy's radio show, everybody said, hey, guys, we thought you were nuts with Talk Soup, but now we're really convinced you're crazy. And they said, no, you don't get it. There was an old TV show in the U.S. called WKRP in Cincinnati, which was all about the team on a radio show. And it was a sitcom, and it was fabulous and stuff like that. And we just looked at Howard and said, this is the real life version. This is the reality version of KRP in Cincinnati. This is not a radio show. This is an ensemble sitcom.
What an interesting take on that. And you mentioned that people thought you were crazy, but isn't that the definition of an entrepreneur having a vision? You're a little crazy. No one really understands what you're saying, but in your mind, like you can see it. Is that how you felt?
Yeah, for sure. And there's a good book that came out recently by a friend here in Hollywood, Larry Kasanoff, who's done over 100 movies, and he wrote a book called The Touch of the Madness. And quite honestly, to be in this business over the long haul, not for the short-term money, but over the long haul, you have to have a touch of it. You have to be a little bit crazy. You have to not take other people's criticisms that, seriously and stuff like that. And it was funny. I was just talking at something yesterday, and I said, I find things now. I just got an award at Kennedy Space Center for. I got the Media Visionary Award handed by an astronaut, which is mind-boggling because I never would have imagined ever getting one of those. But I said, not long ago, I was just thought of as a lunatic in Hollywood, and so I've gone from a crazy to a visionary in the last decade. So
is that just semantics?
I don't think I'm any different than I was back then, but now I'm a visionary, and it's much better than being called crazy. So,
well, exactly. People take you a little bit more seriously now, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever think that E would be as big as it is today?
Yeah, we did, and it's funny that because Alan and I always thought that, and people are amazed when I say this, but I don't find, we figured out that people around the world love Hollywood gossip. And I'm going, it wasn't rocket science. We didn't cure cancer. I mean, how hard was it to figure that out? Now, with that said, we did execute it really, really well. But, thinking that the world loves Hollywood gossip and actors and actresses and the backstories, we were like, yeah, of course they do.
It sounds like you were able to humanize the whole Hollywood experience, more relatable.
Yeah, and it was really, like I say, not having tremendous resources, we had to be very resourceful. And what people loved about that channel was they felt like they were a fly on the wall, seeing things that they're going, oh my God, I can't believe we saw the party after the Oscars and, stuff. And it was really that lack of high polish that made it really, really accessible to people and made people comfortable with it. And the format we used, was just that very quick kind of stuff so that people knew they could tune it in, go do something, come back, and you didn't, it wasn't like you missed yesterday's episode.
How quickly did Tom Cruise allow this interaction? Because I'm sure all the actors, especially the A-list actors, they were used to a very specific formula of what they were being asked, how they were being approached. How did they take to this irreverent approach, as you called it earlier?
It was interesting. I mean, some of them kind of stood away, but a lot of them got it right away, and, in talking to them, and again, because we weren't so Tom Cruise, tell me about your next movie. They were used to that and they wouldn't have done that. But, we were talking about, hey, what do you do with your kids this weekend? So they got a chance to talk about the fact that they're human beings and they have a life and they have feelings and stuff like that. So they got that, and then we started exploring people's going, we don't want to really talk to you. We want to like check out your closet, so, they were fascinated with it. And we were there. Today the world has changed and everybody's looking for, the train wrecks, they want to catch somebody, cheating on their wife or whatever. We were there and said, we love Hollywood and we're going to celebrate it. And, so we weren't looking for that nasty gossip and stuff. We were, kind of looking for the inside stories that never really got told. And, one of the ones that really probably broke us out, there was a very famous actor in Hollywood, old actor named Jack Lemmon. And, he was part of The Odd Couple and stuff like that.
I
And
used to watch that with my dad.
he was known for not doing, those kind of interviews and stuff like that. And we tried to get him and we were told no, like everybody else was told no. And then, finally, when I met, his manager, I said, what does Jack like to do? And he said, well, when he's home, he plays the piano and stuff like that. And he really loves his piano. And I said, great. I said, I'll put a piano on the set, send Jack in, and he can play the piano for an hour. And nobody will talk to him or ask him a question. And they said, yeah, right. If you do that, well, and you got to guarantee that nobody will talk to him. I went, I guarantee it. Nobody will talk to him. I mean, again, we had 24 hours a day to fill. I mean, so we literally did that. And, Jack, he came in and started, he's very wary, looking for like, okay, who's going to spring the questions on me? And then, he started playing the piano and stuff. And after about a half an hour, he realized that we actually were going to honor it and just let him play the piano for an hour. And he just started talking to the camera. And he started saying all this stuff that everybody wanted to ask him for ages and stuff. But then the word got around. They're going, somehow that little cable network got Jack to open up and tell the stories we've been trying to pull out of him for years. And that kind of opened it up.
That's really that's really amazing. And it points out, and you keep on repeating one word over and over and over, resourceful. And every single story that you're telling us right now is an example of how resourceful you were in the past. And every entrepreneur and business owner, our audience that's listening, we have to kind of hone in to the resourcefulness of what we're trying to accomplish, because typically we don't get it handed to us on a silver platter. We have to figure out ways to maneuver around the criteria or credentials or environment that we have to keep that vision moving forward and not get distracted by the chaos around us.
Yeah, I always kind of underplay, what Alan and I accomplished and stuff. But yeah, a lot of people will say to me, they go, "Oh, you were so lucky you had all those great hosts." And that was not luck. We looked at it and said, "Oh man, we only got $2.5 million. What are we going to do?" And we said we're never going to dazzle people with fancy production or anything like that. We said the most important thing is we need to pick hosts that people are either going to love or hate, but they're going to feel something. And again, we had Greg Kinnear and all kind of Katie Wagner and Richard Blade and all these people that went on to much bigger careers after E. And we didn't get them luck. That wasn't luck. We interviewed almost 10,000 people.
Oh, wow.
And we put 7,200 people on tape to pick the first 5 hosts. So we realized that that's the one thing with our budget we can control. And we put all of our money and all of our effort into that, selecting those hosts. And we turned out quite right, obviously, because they all did really, really well. And
knowing what you know now and where you're at right now, what would you have changed to get you to here still?
Well, with early, I think we, whether it's we were smart or lucky or whatever, we did the right things. I would have been a little more thoughtful as to who we took in as investors on the next round, because they were a total pain in the ass. We took in a lot of the big cable companies, which on one hand helped because it gave us big distribution. We grew immensely quickly. But on the other hand, they were very myopic and only looked at their industry and didn't really look at how people, like one of the things we were going to do. So when we showed a movie trailer, we were going to use what at that point was this technology that the Weather Channel used. So if you watch the Weather Channel back then, they actually put a device at each cable company that would bring in the local weather, kind of running underneath the video and stuff. We said, this is great because we can run a movie trailer and tell you where it's playing in your neighborhood and what time and all that. So you don't have to go out and buy the newspaper. Back then, there were these things called newspapers. And, and we thought it was fabulous. And we said, it's great for people because I used to find, I'd say, hey, I feel like going to the movies and I have to find a paper. And, we're talking pre-internet. And, but the cable companies were myopic. They were like, oh, no, you can't do that because we want people staying home and watching HBO. We don't want them going to the movies. So they made us like take that out of the thing. And so, yeah, I would have been more thoughtful as to who the investors were and what their agenda was, because, in many ways they did change our agenda. And, I wouldn't say they shared my sense and Alan's sense of humor. So, sometimes, they would look at us and go, you want to do what? And we're like, they didn't necessarily get it.
Well, and piggybacking off of that, when you're pioneering, the road has never been created, right? You're forging your own way. And it's easy for someone to criticize, like, oh, you should have done it this way, or you should have changed X, Y, and Z. But you were pioneering it. So you were actually creating the template for someone else behind you to use. Is that your feeling about that as well?
Well, looking back, it is. Yeah. I mean, we didn't think of it going forward. We were just doing what we thought made sense and stuff like that. And we were pretty stubborn, thought we had the vision for where this needed to go. But yeah, we were criticized a lot and stuff. But, we did, what really helped is we were, again, limited resources. We've said, what are the assets here? And on one hand, the assets were getting the cable companies to agree to carry that channel. And on the other hand, it was getting the studios to agree to work with that company and supply, their movie trailers and behind the scenes and interviews and all of that. And we really did focus on that. And, on one hand, I was a cable operator, so I know how to craft the story so that cable operators, who are sitting going, we want people staying home and watching HBO. And I go, no, guys, HBO at that time, monthly subscription, you'd look at the guide at the, beginning of the month and go, this looks like a good month. It really had to do with not how good the movies were, but whether you knew those movies. So if you never heard a movie, it could be the greatest movie ever made. You go, oh God, where'd they get this from? And you may not subscribe to HBO for the next month, versus you'd look at the guide and go, oh, they got a great list of movies because you knew of them. You didn't watch them all. So we knew how to sell the cable operators on what the value was to them. Mm-hmm. And then, I'd get a cable operator to say, okay, I get it, I'll do it. And then I would go back to the movie studios and go, hey, I just signed, the third biggest cable company and whatever. I need you to sign a deal with us. And they did that. And then, by the time everybody woke up, Ted Turner and then the people from Home Shopping Network, they said, this is a great idea. We're going to do it. And they all announced they're doing their own version of the network then. But by that time, I already had all the cable companies signed up and I already had the movie studio signed up. So the game was over. There was nothing left on the table for them to start a network. And they basically had to fold, and after you announce to the Wall Street Journal and you're a public company and then you can't do it, it was pretty embarrassing for them.
And I love that you shared that. Thank you. And I want to bring this down a little bit, down a few levels, or maybe like 1,000 levels for our listeners when they're business owners and entrepreneurs, right? You can have the idea, and jump in here, Larry, anytime you want. You can have the idea, right? And from my perspective, from the CPA world, the numbers don't lie. If the numbers don't support certain things, and if you don't have a plan, it's hard to execute it. And it seems like here, a lot of these individuals had these great ideas, but the fact that you knew how to splice cable, you knew exactly what went into create those visions and those decisions, you were able to navigate that much easier than just, living on a dream.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. It was getting those cable operators to see the value of having, at first, their first reaction was like, why would we want people going to the movies or letting them even know that? and they just say, listen, you're not going to get an 18-year-old kid who's going to stay home with his Friday night date to watch TV with his parents in the living room. They want to go to the movies and stuff like that. So by providing people with utility value, and you see this now with cable and everything, NFTs and all this stuff, is giving people that utility value that, they start to drop the negatives and going, okay, nobody's really going to like drop cable because now they know what's in the movies. It's like you got married, you got kids. You can't go to the movies the way you were when you were 18. So, yeah, we managed to understand what the issues were and get those across to the people that were most important. And then, the most important thing was getting distribution, getting cable companies to carry you. And we did. It wasn't easy because then it was before consolidation. There were like 10,000 cable systems in the US. And, now it's really consolidated to maybe 5 and, 5 big ones and stuff like that. But, you had to go around and visit people and literally, the boondocks.
On a more personal level, do you ever feel, having everything that you've accomplished, right? Do you ever feel like you're underestimated or undervalued?
No, not really. Again, with I don't know what it is, but I look at it and go, how hard was it to figure out that people around the world love Hollywood gossip and train wrecks and stuff? I don't, again, I think I do underplay it because we did execute it really, really well. But no, there are things that I'm more proud of or more amazed by that I've done. I had the #1 TV show in Russia for 10 years, 5 days a week. I'm going, okay, that's pretty cool. And then, I wrote I never wrote comedy in my life, but I wrote a sitcom and for China and Contradictions of Modern Chinese Life. And it ended up going on national TV in China. First time an American writer ever had a show on national TV in China in Mandarin. Country I didn't grow up in and a culture I don't necessarily understand fully. But it went on to get nominated at the Asia TV Awards. We didn't win, but we were the only comedy nominated that year from China. And I said, okay, now that's kind of cool. Writing a comedy and, for a country I didn't grow up in a language and the culture I don't necessarily get, and, being recognized as the best and only from the country. I said, that actually impresses me. So, yeah. So he was a little more obvious in writing comedy in China. No, it was not so obvious.
Do you have a network out there, or when you first started this, were you able to lean on someone to help guide you? Or was this, once again, kind of, you had a vision, but it was kind of on a whim and let's test it out? And what came about that decision?
Well, we really didn't have anybody, and everybody kept telling us, you can't do this. And we were just like, why not? And, for us, when MTV started, you had a green screen and they stood a host in front of music videos, and the host would turn to the green screen and go, "Hey, Madonna has a new video." And we said, well, we'll get, the movie trailers and we'll stand the host and go, and Schwarzenegger has a new movie. That arm movement is basically the same thing. You're just pointing to something different. And, and that was the basis, because we were getting this 2-minute, MTV got these music videos for free from the music industry because they promoted those artists. And we were getting these movie trailers for free because they promoted the movies. So, we had this really high quality stuff that they were developing and giving us for free. I mean, the irony was, we started out heavily with the music, before, Cock Soup with the movie trailers, and then we started building audience numbers. So we would go to the marketing department and get the movie, get them to give us the movie trailers. And then we would get audience numbers saying, 3% of the people that went to the movies this week decided what movie to see based on what they saw on E. Then 4%, 5%, showing the growing number. And then we go to the advertising group at the same studios and say, hey, look, 12% of the people who went to the movies last week, whatever. It took them literally 3 years to figure out they were giving us the content for free that we were then selling them the opportunity to put their ads around. And then, they finally said, hey, wait a second. But, that enabled us to grow big and quick and stuff really quick. And again, we had this really high quality, low cost product and told them advertising around what they were giving us for free.
Is television in China similar to television in the US? Can you shed some light there?
No, it's actually pretty different. I mean, you had the communist regime, and up until 15 years ago, it was very state controlled. So now each region in China has their own TV group. So you have the Beijing TV group, the Shanghai TV group, et cetera. And they have multiple channels, so they'll have their local channels, they'll have their own documentary channel or business channel or whatever. And, but in China, like the stuff that we produce there, the last numbers we saw, I think it was about 70% of the people who were watching our stuff were watching it on a cell phone, not a TV set. So it really forced us to rethink how we produce stuff. I mean, you couldn't, you used to shoot something and then you'd go and edit it on a 55-inch TV and stuff. And we said, wait a second, that's not how people are watching it. So we ended up editing on iPhones and stuff like that. So we had to change production, change the way. You wouldn't shoot wide shots anymore with 17 people. You'd have to hone in on face shots and stuff like that. So it looks a little bit odd when you watch it on a 55, but when you watch it on a cell phone, it looked great. So doing a lot of that on demand is clearly the way things are there. There's no linear TV does not do well. Everybody watches it on their equivalent to streamers and stuff. And again, it kind of helped us understand where the US was going, because there's a very simple question. Do you want to watch what you want to watch when you want to watch it on a device you want to watch it? Or do you want to watch what NBC wants you to watch on Thursday night at 8:00? We all know the answer to that. I mean, other than sports and news, there's really no reason to have linear television or time anchored television and stuff. Everything should be on demand. So everything that, we do, particularly that I do here in the US, is really based on, kind of things I learned in China.
Very interesting. And it's interesting too, once again, bringing it down to the business entrepreneur, you've adapted to the situation. You didn't force your vision on others. You had to adapt your vision to be successful by the standards that dictated it at that time.
Yeah. And I very much so. And, in China, people say, why did you pick Russia? Why did you pick China? And my answer was quite simple. I said, I went to places where I knew they didn't like Rupert Murdoch, because they had a fear of big media. They didn't like U.S. big media. They thought big media was trying to impose their agenda on their countries, and they weren't welcoming that. And we weren't doing that. And a lot of, we went to places where we knew we could be on equal footing with the big monsters and stuff like that. But I always give this example, and it's really true. A lot of it just has to do with upbringing. I mean, after my dad passed and my mother moved to Florida, I would go visit her and go, hey, tonight I want to go eat Italian food at 8:00. And she'd go, no, we're going to the deli at 5:30. And I'm going, but I don't eat at 5:30. And she goes, you're a guest in my house. If you want to stay here, you will eat at 5:30. And then, I kind of carried that around. I'm not in China to change their government or change their way of thinking. I'm there to entertain them and stuff. So when you approach these countries as a guest, I'm a guest in their house, and I got to be respectful of that, stuff like that. So, where the Ruperts came in and said, here's what I do in China, and I'll subtitle it in English for you. And, the Chinese are going, hey, we're 4 times bigger than you are in America, and we're proud to be Chinese. And if you're not willing to produce programming for our people in our language, you're in the wrong place. And it's kind of like I go, this is like Mom's house. And so everything we do in China, I do specifically for the Chinese audience, and I do it in Mandarin. And then that's kept us there we've been in China now 13 years.
Amazing. And filtering this back down to our business owners and entrepreneurs, like you have to know your audience. You have to know who you're delivering to and why. still stay true to your vision, but adapt to your circumstances. Very interesting.
And knowing who the gatekeepers are, knowing who could say no and bounce you out and, kill you off, and realizing, what do you need to do so that they welcome you as opposed to put the block up in front of you.
So that's such a good point. Such a good point. And I think sometimes we forget to contact the gatekeepers and we spin in circles trying to figure out, who to connect and how we can get something accomplished. Where if you just go to the source, you got to know who the source is. If you just go to the source, they'll just tell you.
Yep, absolutely.
Very interesting. So you mentioned something about when you were choosing your hosts for E, and I'm gonna make a big transition here. So just follow me for a moment. When you were choosing your hosts for E, you didn't really matter whether they were liked or disliked. You just wanted the viewers to feel something, right? And what I want to ask you, and this is something that's so important for our listeners, because my goal in the vision for Live Life Wealthier is bringing in a lot more than just business into business. I'm trying to reinvent it in a way where you can have more success with more ease, but also aligning yourself to what your mission is and what your goals are, and not separating silos, family from spirituality, from business, from friends, right? But kind of melding it all together. And this I have found, Larry, this is a very tough conversation to have, because people, anytime they think of inspiration, anytime they think of something higher than themselves, they immediately think religion. And I want to completely get that out of people's minds. So I am very, very curious. Is there something that inspires you, or how do you hone in your inspiration to, help you navigate through the, ecosystem and environment that you live in?
Yeah. Well, with COVID, I started doing stuff more in the US again. So I've been developing series here and stuff. And quite honestly, the only thing we take on are projects that we feel have an impact. So it's not just, and I speak at family office events and stuff all the time now. It's the danger of being a creative who knows how to read balance sheets. But
the numbers don't lie.
But I fight with people because every family office out there goes, we want stuff that makes a difference. We need social impact. That's what we're about. But yet when you get down to negotiating a deal, say, okay, I'm going to do a TV series about parenting because it's a huge problem and we need to build a generation of better parents. Otherwise, we're going to have a generation of really miserable kids. It always comes back to, yeah, I get it, but what's the ROI? And I'm going, if you're going to measure ROI by simply just looking at, what the cash back is, you're not paying any attention to the impact and stuff and the other things that it could bring. So, I think people, particularly investors, really have to realize there's a balance. You could make money and do good at the same time. And I think the great example, a friend of mine who, we kind of worked together on stuff, ran off to the Amazon to, and work with, with folks that didn't really have much money or anything. And he came back and said, I'm starting this company and it's going to be a shoe company. And every time someone buys a pair of shoes, we're going to give 2 to a kid in the Amazon with no shoes. And I'm like, really? I said, that seems crazy. But, he started Tom's Shoes and, he sold the company for like $1 billion. So, and I think that was the start of where people began to realize you could make a lot of money and you could do good, and that you need to measure ROI, not just in dollars, but with impact. And you get to the whole question of like, why are we here? Why are we on this planet? And, my feeling is we're here with a mission. We're supposed to leave it in every way better than we found it. Whether that be with, the human condition, whether it be, animal rights, whether it be environmental. I mean, that's our job. And, we got to start realizing that we don't get to take the money with us. We all go, and we don't get to take that money and those things with us. So what's the legacy that we're going to leave and stuff. And don't we want our kids to have it better than we did? And, I think we all do. And I don't think it makes a difference where you're from. We all want better for our kids.
I love that you said that. I was hoping you would say something like that, but obviously I didn't know. And that's so, so powerful. Are there any words of advice? I'm going to have two more questions here, and they're kind of in different directions, but they all flow into the same pile. Would you have any suggestions for our movement into how to maybe phrase this to business owners? And maybe what is it that they're losing or lacking if they don't have this perception or this thought process?
Well, I think, is really honing in and showing people that it's not just about the dollars. It's more than that. And, and I think, what Blake did with Tom Shoes was a great example. And now a lot of people are following it. I see, everybody following that model. Being good is good business. People who are, into environmental issues or animal rights issues or women's rights issues and stuff, they will follow companies that truly, inspire in those areas and stuff. And you could build loyalty and brand loyalty and business that way. And, it's an education process there. I think we're beginning to get it here. I wouldn't say that we've totally gotten it here, but, there are some good examples out there of just like I say, being good is good business.
And in working in China and here, right, our cultures are very different, although there's, I'm certain, some commonalities as well. Is there a very specific difference in the way they operate business or approach business versus the American way?
Yeah, well, it always starts again, I did stuff in Russia and Eastern Europe and then China. So I become an expert in post-communist media. And it always, after, particularly Russia, after 72 years of communism, my friends there, would start businesses and stuff, and they would do stuff that I would be appalled. I go like, your friend so-and-so came to you with this business deal and you screwed them in the deal. And their answer would be, well, Larry, business is business. They would literally take that literally. And they've kind of grown out of it, and I've seen it in China. It's just like this misinterpretation of what capitalism or free market is supposed to be, which is like anything goes in the name of profits. And then they learn that it really is not. In China, it's very encouraging, among young people who really do see that there's more to life than just money and stuff. So they're very concerned with environment and quality of life issues and stuff there. And, one of the things I love about China that's certainly different from here is, kind of respect. Now that I'm getting older, respect for elders. Here, most kids don't even know who their grandparents. They don't really have relationships in China because of the one-child policy, and then they have early retirement. So, this family would have one kid, and the mom and dad would work, but the two sets of grandparents would be responsible for taking care of the kid. So you really have 6 adults taking care of one kid. So big dependence on, education and, the aspirations for the kid. And, money would go anything. We do anything that has an educational bent in China works amazing because you literally have 6 adults supporting, the education of this one kid.
It's incredible. Your whole outlook is very inspiring, Larry. And it's very interesting because when I don't believe in coincidences. So, and I also don't believe in luck, right? I feel like you create your own environment and you're led for a reason. And it's interesting because when I first met you, it was a series of coincidences. Once again, I don't believe in coincidences, but I just happened to be at an event that you were at because I was invited last minute and I didn't know who you were. You were, I want to say you were dressed down. I think you had gym shoes on, maybe shorts and a t-shirt. And you and I just started chatting, just, immigrant stories, restaurants. And then I saw you go on stage. I'm like, that's Larry Name. He started eating. And it's really interesting. How do you stay so humble? And why is that so important to you? And is that what you teach your kids and family as well?
Yeah, it is. It's funny. I've kind of come out of my hermit life recently with COVID. I start to get out a lot more, but again, I just never let it go to my head, and a lot of it has to do with upbringing and stuff. And actually, my publicist she cracks up laughing. She's been with me for years. She goes, "You pay me to keep you out of the newspaper," and I'm like, "Exactly. I don't need it. To me, it's not the validation of my worth and stuff like that. I got to really look inside myself and saying, number one, is the goal in life to have like unlimited money? No. Is the goal in life to be happy? Is the goal in life to make your kids grow up to be good human beings and be happy? So yeah, that's kind of what is more important to me than just having unlimited wealth or whatever.
Well, you are a perfect example of someone who's living life wealthier. And this is why we're here. And we also have a very, very special announcement. Larry is going to be joining us at our first live event at the end of September this year, the 20th and the 21st. And if you'd enjoy hearing more of this conversation, if you'd love to meet Larry, we encourage you to reach out. And Larry, I can't wait to see you in person again. And I really appreciate the time that you shared with us today. And I hope you have a really good one.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode. May this discussion serve as a gentle reminder that living a fulfilling and purposeful life is possible. Take charge of your life right now by cultivating relationships, drawing inspiration, nurturing love, and expanding income streams. Visit livelifewealthier.com for additional conversations that will provide you with life-altering aha moments. That's all I have for now. Until the next time, take care.